Gone are the days of buying the biggest, baddest single-point wireless router you can find in hopes of reaching the far corners of your house with Wi-Fi. With the release of TP-Link's Deco M5 system, we finally bring some of those advanced enterprise-class features down to the consumer. Now, when I think enterprise class, I immediately assume cost. Well, that is after I think about Star Trek. Of course. This is because most hardware built for the commercial environments have to meet certain standards in both performance and reliability, and with those standards usually come cost. The feature I'm talking about in today's video is seamless mesh networking, a feature that is an absolute must in most commercial environments, but not often found inside the home. Not to say that it's impossible though, there are a few different mesh Wi-Fi systems available on the market today. But where the Deco M5 comes in is price, and at the launch of this system, the price was only $300. While that is more expensive than most mid to high-end routers, it's still less expensive than some of the top-tier routers available. However, directly comparing the prices between the Deco systems and other top-end single-point routers, it's kind of like comparing apples to oranges. Because with the Deco M5, your focal point really is spread out mesh networking, while with standard top-end single-point routers, you're limited to one point of broadcast. The idea of Deco is to paint your entire home with a solid Wi-Fi signal. Furthermore, make it so when you move around your home, that signal gets handed off to the strongest point of broadcast available without any interruptions in your connection. Now, of course, I put all of this through some testing methods that included Iperf, Wi-Fi sweet spots, and Skype. But before I dive into that, let me cover a few selling points with the system. The Deco M5 is an AC1300 Wi-Fi router system that comes with 3 units to a box and look just about the same size and shape of your average smoke detector. Each unit is the same and it has 2 Ethernet ports on the back with a USB Type-C power port. Inside, they all have quad-core processors, Bluetooth 4.2, run on both the 2.4 and 5 GHz bands with 4 internal antennas. Now, aside from the whole mesh networking thing, this system actually has some pretty cool features to it. For example, it comes with built-in virus protection called Home Care, which is actually a little interesting because not only does it aim to stop viruses from actually making it to your computers, but it also has local monitoring that looks out for suspicious activity on your own home network. So if or when it detects anything, it secludes that device from the rest of your network and then sends you a notification of the infection. Now, this includes things like viruses and malware that might try to use your network as a botnet as well. So especially those things like IP cameras or smart TVs. And the coolest part here is that it can also detect ransomware infections on your home network that might try to encrypt all shared data on your network, giving you another line of defense that could save you from a lot of headache. You can also set up parental control profiles that can block different websites per profile, as in you can have a heavily limited internet connection going to your 6-year-old child's tablet, while still giving just a little bit more freedom to your teenager. For that matter, Deco can even send you monthly reports and give you details about your usage and the content that was blocked through your parental controls. So, when your teenager starts, being a teenager, you'll know about it. Another thing I like about the Deco M5 system is the adaptive routing technology, or ART for short. With this technology, you'll only have one network ID that connects to devices with one password and automatically determines which frequency should be used for each device, keeping a well-balanced, high-performing network at all times. But one of the best things about the whole system, though, is how user-friendly and easy it is to set up. However, this is kind of a double-edged sword because the same simplicity becomes its greatest drawback, but more on that later. So on the back of each Deco unit, as mentioned before, you have 2 Ethernet ports. Now, the way it's designed, either port can actually be used for whatever you want it to be. For example, you can pick which port you want to connect to your modem to get your ISP's internet service and which port you want to connect to a switch or another Deco unit. And this is great too because I do love the simplicity, especially because it works flawlessly. And I don't mind that it doesn't have many ports on it because personally, I have a separate 24-port switch. But this limited amount of ports could be a drawback for others. As for setting it up though, things couldn't get any simpler. Seriously, you plug it in, you download the Deco app, you enable Bluetooth on your phone or tablet, and it guides you through everything else. Simple. You're met with some very basic steps to get up and running, and before you know it, you're done. And it's easy to see the status of each unit via the simple little LED on the top that changes colors. I will say though, don't try to skip unplugging your modem. I thought I was special and I could get away without doing it, but I was totally wrong. Anyway, after you're set up, adding another unit is just as simple, especially because even though you can hardwire them, you don't have to. All you have to do is use your little Deco app after plugging in another unit, and it handles the rest. You can even tell the app where in your house you're placing the new Deco unit, so it's easier for you to manage later on. The new Deco unit acts as a true extension to your network, giving you more Wi-Fi coverage without the additional wires. You could wire them for better performance if you wanted to, but for this video, I'm just going to focus on the simpler way to do things. As for performance, well, this is where things got a little interesting. For my testing, I put it up against the C5400 from TP-Link. I know it's a little unfair, but I wanted to get an idea what kind of difference I would have switching to a mesh system to a single point system. And the C5400 might not be TP-Link's most expensive router out there, but it's still kind of up there. For setup, I had the first Deco unit where the C5400 would go because it's near my modem. Then I took the second unit almost directly above it to the kitchen countertop. And finally, the third unit went into my spare bedroom about 25 feet away. With this setup, I should have great mesh coverage throughout my entire house, even covering most of my front and backyard. For my first test, I used the Wi-Fi Sweet Spots app in different rooms in my house. I held down the record average button for just about a minute each time to get the average number for each location. Then I set up the C5400 and reran the test again. To make these results simple, I will put a screenshot on each side of the screen with the results. This was my first area sitting closest to the main units in my basement on the sofa. This is in my kitchen, standing near the sink. This is the master bedroom laying on the bed. And this is in my spare bedroom in the far corner of my home. So from these tests, as expected, the C5400 starts to dip down in speed the further away I get, while the Deco M5 is able to maintain a more reliable speed across the board, even outperforming the C5400 in one of the mid-range tests. My next test was a simple test to see if the wireless handoff was seamless between the Deco units. So to do this, I set up Skype on my wife's phone downstairs, pointed it at the TV, playing a movie. Then I walked around the house from one unit's coverage area to the others to see if Skype would have any kind of interruptions. And, well, it didn't. Everything went smoothly, and I walked through the entire house. Twice, actually. This confirmed to me that all units were working as intended. For my final test, I ran Iperf with the server hosted on my main PC that's connected with a 1 gig Ethernet port. Now this is an important test because it doesn't just test a connection between my router and my phone. It actually runs through my entire network, all the way through the main Deco unit and my 24-port switch. This tests the Deco system's ability to bunny hop the signal through all 3 units. And of course, I will test the C5400 from the same locations. Starting off, I test the speed in front of my main units about 6 feet away. Then I move up to the kitchen countertop. And then to the spare bedroom. Here we start to see some interesting results. While still being able to get faster speeds out of the C5400 at closer range, they really start to dip off at the far corners of the house. Kind of expected, actually. While the Deco unit does the same thing, it's able to maintain more reliable speeds all around. So it's easy to say as far as coverage goes, overall, the Deco M5 system is capable of painting my entire home with a stronger and more reliable signal. The trade-off being that I lose some of that top-end speed I get from the C5400 when I'm closer to it. Let's step it back though and talk about that double-edged sword as I mentioned before. You remember when I said everything was simple and easy? Well, that's still true. Everything is kind of a no-brainer when it comes to getting things set up, which is great. I love that. However, once I got everything set up and I got my network switched over to the Deco M5 system, I had to get my server back up and running, which required setting up some dedicated device IPs and port forwarding at a minimal. After not finding these options in the Deco app on my iPhone, I got on my main PC, found the correct gateway address, and navigated to it via my browser. Or so I thought. As it turns out, the Deco does not have a web interface that you can connect to with your PC. Everything is controlled from the Deco app only. And while the app does seem to be pretty well made and has a fair amount of options, it's still limited for somebody like me. Somebody who might need a personal VPN setup on their router or run a small media server. Now, without some of these more advanced options, it's impossible for me to use this as a daily driver. And I kind of find it weird that port forwarding isn't even an option because while that might be considered an advanced feature to some people, I see it more as a basic feature that most people need to get basic things running. But to cover all my bases, I did reach out to TP-Link and I talked to one of their developers. And although I don't have a set date yet, I have been reassured that more advanced options are coming soon, and that the only reason why I was missing these features is because I have a pre-release software, which is great because I was kind of panicking. Alrighty, so it's easy to paint your entire home with Wi-Fi using the Deco M5 system, and you get some pretty cool features like built-in virus protection, full-fledged parental controls, and only having one network name and password for all of your devices. The trade-off though is losing some of that top-end speed that you might get from a beefy single-point router at closer range, and of course some of those advanced features I mentioned before that some people might have come to rely on. I should note here that after I was done, I did plug the Deco M5 system into a spare port on my C5400, and it automatically made itself an access point. This broadcasted Wi-Fi signal to all corners of my lawn, allowing me to stream music while I mowed the lawn that day, without having to use LTE data. So that's kind of cool. In conclusion, the Deco M5 mesh Wi-Fi system is impressive in terms of ease of use, coverage area, and those key features I've talked about. It maintains a fairly consistent speed throughout all of my home and overall seems pretty reliable. What it lacks though is the raw power that you get out of higher end routers like the C5400, but that is kind of to be expected because it's only an AC1300 system. So I knew going into this that it's not going to have the same top end speeds as the one before. Also, as mentioned, it definitely lacks some of the very basic advanced features like port forwarding or dedicated device IPs. And for some reason, it doesn't give you any kind of access to a web interface from your PC. These are absolute must-have features that I would want out of a system like this, especially at this cost. I do hope though that the planned updates come out and they bring those features in, making this entire package complete. For more information on the Deco M5 Wi-Fi system, check out the links in the description below. But as always, thank you for watching, like and subscribe below, and have a great day.